officials from the vehicle they were traveling in. The 8 officers were responsible for the protection of Deputy President Paul Mashatile when the incident occurred. The state has objected to defense lawyer Mswazi Makhubela's mention of a big crack on the windscreen.
What you cannot tell is with the big crack.
No, I don't think we can say that is a crack. It's a line that runs across the picture.
Your Worship, I'm entitled to make that assumption. And the reason is because this picture has been presented before Your Worship. And the reason it was presented before Your Worship is that it must be taken note of.
The ANC in Limpopo and its alliance partners COSATU, the SACP and SANCO will today picket at the Premier's office in Polokwane against Israel's participation in the Olympics. The ANC believes that Israel does not deserve to be part of sports that unite people while it continues the bombardment of Gaza and the West Bank. At least 40,000 Palestinians have been killed and scores displaced in the conflict. The ANC's Jimmy Machaka says they're calling on the Olympics organizers to remove Israel from the Games.
They continue to violate the human rights of the people of Palestine. They ought not to be part of these Olympic Games because they are continuing to cause loss of lives in Israel. And it is for that reason that as the ANC, we remain consistent in our call that Israel must desist from killing innocent people in Palestine.
And staying with Olympics, the men's triathlon in the Paris Olympics has been postponed due to the poor quality of the water in the River Seine. The condition of the water has been a subject of frequent controversy in the run-up to the Olympics, with warnings that pollution could harm the athletes. More from the BBC's Andrew Harding.
News of the delay comes just hours before triathlon athletes were due to line up on the banks of the River Seine. The men's event has now been postponed until tomorrow morning, immediately after the women's triathlon. Race organisers said water level qualities had improved after recent rainfall washed sewage into the river, but not yet by quite enough. Olympic officials had earlier insisted no delay would be needed, and this news will raise fresh doubts about the decision to hold the swimming event in the Seine rather than a more controlled environment.
The top story at 1, ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang says the worst neglect the ANC has ever committed is to allow for the registration of the MK party under the name of its disbanded armed wing. Time now for the Full Circle. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemeli.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
When Freddie, a troubled woman, is nearly assaulted outside a nightclub, the toilet attendant steps in to help. Baba, a former child soldier, acts with swift, unstoppable brutality. She's entranced. The pair form an instant, intoxicating connection. Something dark within both of them quickly emerges. Soon, they set about exacting revenge on people from Freddie's past. Baba's skill for violence and Freddie's tinge of psychopathy prove a lethal combination. But they are not the only ones on the hunt. We hunt together, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 24th of July. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
S3. And we will buy 500 cars and we will buy 500 more just to be the one who buys your car. We'll come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Channel more reasons to feel encouraged on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as Councillor Sadia Southgate shares how mental health support helps us see a brighter day. Making sense of food labels gets us eating right. Chef Dumi and Jay make a whipped feta and grilled lamb flatbread. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
In my people's quest for true freedom, I pray that we unmask ourselves from everything that allows us to love. Because love is true freedom. And that's where our freedom is.
Singing the color of you, 'cause you know this. Love in the music, love is the message I bring to you. Love is the color of you.
The day, it's a day, Open your eyes so you can see what I'm facing. Hoping you find that you were free like a mason. Hoping you find that you will sink like a basin. Frozen in time so you redeem those chasing the cause. Freedom fighters, those saving us all. Reading about us, those taking the fall for your nation. The poor, their numbers when you're raking the morgues. Draw a line, man, we're breaking the law. Sometimes stand still, watching the government attend deals with warlords who came to kill. FX later, man, we get the bill. The taxpayer, man, they gave Brazil. So we ask questions about the name, the shame, and the pain we feel. And it's unfortunate, the same in every country on this continent. The same that makes us angry at the consequence. It's just them burning lanes. Steve Biko in a turning grave. We'll see a hero who just can't save. We're feeling lethal in the baddest way. 'Cause love is a color of you.
Painting a picture with every word that I bring to you. Singing the color of you. 'Cause you know this. Love in the music. Love is a message I bring to you. Love is the color of you. Every song that I sing is a portrait of freedom that love can bring. And with every melody, you should see that the color of this love is a reflection of you.
Open your eyes so you can see the sacrifice that your forefathers did to cushion you in the pillar fights. Hoping you find that you will need a pen and fight. How sacred define us of. I think we lost our minds when they told the line. The Philistines too fresh than ass last and the break your spine too fresh against blast when you take a time and choose chance and no advancement. And my assessment is I would need truth for clarity like a CAT scan. I'm going insane, mad confusion. I'm losing my way, whatever road we're choosing. A product of rage and optical illusion. Everything I do is just a cue, just to get me boozing. Give me your heart to get me feeling human. To receive that freedom from sky. To redeem what we're feeling inside. 'Cause fear is just a demon alive. I shit here, but I'm keeping alive. 'Cause love is a color of you. And that's true.
Painting a picture with every word that I bring to you. Singing the color of you. Love in the music, love is a message. Love in the music, love is a color of you. Love is just the color
of you. It is Kabomu with Notende. It is the colors of you. That's how we kick off this afternoon's programming. I think, in my humblest opinion, it is one of those classic South African R&B tracks, and definitely combining the strengths of two incredible creatives who often don't get their flowers due to them. Kabomo is probably one of the most respected urban writers of this particular generation, and he's been at the helm of a lot of urban titles, magazine titles. He's written quite extensively around black urban culture, around black heritage, as well as covering all kinds of topics when it relates to black music from the context of being South African. He's also co-written quite a few memoirs and ghostwritten quite a few memoirs by some of South Africa's entertainment royals. So both having really quite the extensive contribution by way of music. And of course, Nothende, a multi-award winning R&B singer-songwriter. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. As we kick off this afternoon, we are talking... our first conversation, I'm sure, is going to elicit all kinds of opinion and emotion from a lot of you. And let's just sort of preamble it by saying that let's have a nice, healthy, robust conversation that is respectful and considered to the young lady at hand. And we want to pick up on this chat that's been brewing over the last couple of days on social media around Miss South Africa hopeful Chidima Vanessa Onye Adechena. And we're asking the question, what does it mean to be South African? And perhaps some of the lessons that we can take from this very nasty ordeal that's unfolding on social media around this young South African woman who is competing in the Miss South Africa pageant. And we enter this conversation by gateway of an article that was written by the deputy editor for IOL, and we're going to engage that. And the question that was on the table was, what does it mean to be South Africans? That's coming up in the first hour, and then we're going to delve into stages, pages, screens, and more. The first Canadian original musical is to tour in South Africa during Women's Month, and of course, the creator of the opera is going to tell us more about that. That's in the first hour. On the other side of 2 o'clock, we're hoping to have that conversation, to pick up on the conversation we were supposed to have last week around pancreatitis. It is Tuesday after all, so we're delving into things of health and wellness after 2. And then we're going to wrap it up by another conversation that's so important and deeply personal for so many women in South Africa and the world over. We've been running a series of conversations around infertility, and today we're going to be talking to a woman who's walked the walk, and has penned her journey, her thoughts, and her experience in what she titles Infertility in the Workplace. And the author of The Quest for a Child, a story of hardship, resilience, and faith, is going to be joining us later on the show. 086 000 2032 is our call-in number. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line as we get into our first conversations.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107. So we were hoping to be in conversation with the deputy editor for IOL, who penned the opinion piece titled, What Does It Mean to Be South African? Lessons from the Chidima Adechena saga. And it starts off by saying, what does it mean to be South African? This is a question that has been haunting me in the wake of xenophobic, or should we say Afrophobic, online abuse directed at Miss South Africa hopeful Chidima Adechena. Despite being born in South Africa to a South African mother, her Nigerian surname has provoked a backlash that questions her right to represent South Africa in a beauty pageant. And this reaction not only tarnishes our reputation as the Rainbow Nation, but also challenges the very essence of what it means to be South African. Unfortunately, because of scheduling commitments, the author of that opinion piece, Lee Rondenberger, the deputy editor for IOL, couldn't join us for the conversation. But we've got an equally versed participant, social commentator and lecturer, Lieto Ntoba, joining us. How are you doing this afternoon, Lieto?
I'm great. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fantastic. And perhaps let's jump it off there. I think everyone is well aware of the conversation that is happening on social media. I use the word conversation so loosely because I think it stopped being a conversation 3 days ago, and it's spiraling into something quite venomous and quite vile at the moment. But by large, there is this contention around this young woman who has entered Miss South Africa, who is born of a South African mother and a Nigerian father, who is born in South Africa, grew up in South Africa, holds a South African ID, has been verified by the organization that she does meet all the criteria, including being South African, to enter the pageant. And it's launched this sort of spiraling conversation on social media. And let's begin there. What does it mean to be South African?
It shouldn't have to be a question that sounds so lofty, right? Because the definition is already clear. Because when you are born in South Africa, there are processes taken over by the government. The government confirms who's South African, right? They have the final say. So if I am born to a South African mother in South Africa, I then receive an ID number linked to my mother's ID number, meaning a South African has just been born, right? And that is the sort of bureaucratic definition of a South African, right? And we'll get into the murkier definition. And so, which is the same, you could say the same thing for my father. My father was born to a South African mother and a Zambian father, right? And so, but when he was born, his ID number, it was a South African one because he was born within the territorial border of South Africa. And so when that happens, you are then a South African because you have an identity number that is South African, and which is a right afforded to you by the UN. But now let's go to the more murky definitions, right? Let's take Tendai Mtawarira, for instance.
Yes.
Beast, right? He is essentially a representative of South Africa. And South Africa became his adopted country way after he was 18, by the way. Then only did he come to South Africa and play rugby. And so it means South Africans, or any other country, by the way, has a particular nature of co-opting foreigners when it suits them, right? At a time at which you needed beast, nobody was saying, but why is the Zimbabwean playing prop for South Africa, right? And we counted him as one of our own, right? And so this happens in many industries, with doctors, with lecturers, with many people who contribute positively. And so now the problem where this evolves is this new age in which we live in. And I think this is where the problem must be defined. We live in the age of culture wars now, right? Who is white? Who is black? What is white? What is black? What is a deputy white? What is a deputy black? What is a South African? What is a Nigerian? And when you're trying to make those distinctions from arbitrary positions, by the way, which don't matter, because once a person contributes, they then become part of what you're talking about as a country, right? So even if, let's assume that this young lady was an immigrant or a refugee. Let's say she's a refugee from Nigeria, if there was some kind of crisis. If she's a Palestinian. If she is, and she comes here as a refugee. Does she not have the right to assimilate? Does she not have a right to the schooling and the hospitals and even the grace of being a full-fledged citizen of South Africa as is afforded to everyone else? Because that's what we expect when you bring somebody into your country, especially as an immigrant, that they should not be outsiders here. They should feel just as welcome as any South African, because that is the nature of trying to build a nation.
Yeah. I mean, and as you talk about that, part of the discourse on social media, but by those who were trying to be the voice of reason in this conversation, have been saying, well, firstly, you are negating the fact that it's as simple as she is South African because she's born here to a South African mother. But even if she was not born here, to your point, even if she was not born here and not born of South African parents, let's say she was a naturalized citizen of South Africa. Are we then saying we also don't understand the technicalities of that? There are many ways to be regarded as a citizen of a particular nation.
Exactly, right? And you could now raise also the example of Natasha Mazzoni of the DA, isn't it? She's born to Italian parents who are naturalized in South Africa, and that's through their naturalization, because she's also born here. She then becomes a member of parliament. She's now qualified to be a member of parliament. And there are many ways in which these things permeate, right? I live in the Free State, for instance. In the Free State, many people who worked in the mines in the Free State come from Lesotho and became citizens through the naturalization of their work in the mines. They then said, no, after working in the mine for 40 years, I'm not going back to Lesotho. There's nothing back for me there. My wife is here. My child is here. And so I'm going to live here. Through that process, they are naturalized as South Africans. Their children are considered South Africans. We only then begin to ask questions of that child. So let's assume that this child who's from a Lesotho father and a South African mother is here. We only start to ask questions at the point at which this child wants to take up the mantle of Miss South Africa. But when they're a doctor helping us in the hospital, we don't say, hey, but are you from Lesotho or not? When I'm in extreme pain. When they're teaching my child at a high school or at a university, I don't ask them, but where do you come from? Because at that point I need them. And so that's the problem, is that we assume that this position of Miss South Africa is not a position of need. And thinking because now we don't need them in that position, we can then ostracize them for not being what we assume is a pure South African. And there's nothing of the kind, by the way. There is no pure South African that you can find anywhere.
Yeah. 086 000 2032. Our lines are open as we have this conversation. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. I mean, we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. We can always discourse for as long as it's done within the parameters of mutual respect and dignity, not only for our listeners, but also for Chidimani, who, on the day she entered Miss South Africa, did not think or even fathom that she would be at the center of such a polarizing conversation. It also evokes the sense of, if this is our reaction as South Africans, and we continue to say we are Mandela's rainbow nation, and we continue to say that, our Freedom Charter clearly states that South Africa belongs to all who were born in it, but we continue to perpetuate otherwise. What does that say about us as South Africans and how we are moving and evolving within the context of being a African citizen, never mind a global citizen, but within the context of being an African citizen?
I think, the reason why the borders were drawn up like they were, and you find these sort of strange identity politics, is because one wants to belong, right? And it feels special to say I am South African and not Zimbabwean. I feel some kind of special attachment to that name, South African, right? But if you think about it, the argument of the borders being arbitrary is really true. Is that there's no difference between somebody who lives in Bethlehem and somebody who lives in Lesotho, or in those border towns. You go to the border towns of Namibia and South Africa, or Botswana and South Africa. Those people speak the same dialect. Most of them are also family members that live on either side of the border. And so when you think about that, you then must accede to the fact that the uniqueness of being African is actually what we should be striving towards. But it's a difficult idea, because if you now tear down the borders, because that's the next, argument that is difficult to grasp, right? If I tear down the border and I say, we are now all Africans, we all assume that it somehow takes away from me that African unity exists, right? You even see it in America, where even though it's a country, they would like to have their states, and somebody will tell you, yes, I'm an American, but I'm not from North Carolina, I'm from South Carolina, because those kind of definitions make you feel a little bit more special than you actually are, because there's no difference between you right now. The needs and the problems that you face are not unique from a broadcaster in Nigeria, for instance. Maybe you have more in common with a Nigerian broadcaster than you do with a South African lecturer. Yeah. And so those are the issues. We should look at the commonalities that we have together in order for us to get that unity. The problem is the identities that we cling to so viciously are the identities that were thrust upon us by others. These are not identities we determine for ourselves. Even throughout Africa, right, there are definitions of Anglophone and Francophone. But both those languages don't come from Africa. None of them are African. It's French and English. And then we define ourselves by the languages of our colonizers and how they saw us.
Yeah. Let's pause it there for a second as we get the headline news. But of course, our WhatsApp as well as our call lines are open on 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107. That's our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, Madupi Mekhalemele is standing by.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. Good afternoon. In your headlines, the Sawa Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says South Africa is entering an era of new economic challenges, even as the recent ones have yet to be overcome. ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang says the worst neglect the ANC has ever committed is to allow for the registration of the MK party under the name of its disbanded armed wing. And the Venezuelan ambassador to South Africa, Carlos Feo, says some countries are trying to interfere in his country's electoral process because they want its oil resources. Details of these and other stories, 2 o'clock.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line, and of course 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. It's very important for us to keep having these conversations and keep challenging our own perceptions and our own understanding of certain concepts that play around identity, that play around nationalization, and all these themes that make us people, because whether we like it or not, the world is evolving. Societies and peoples are evolving, and more in the very near future, we are going to have more Vanessa Adechenes than you could ever fathom. Why? Because when you look at the current crop, the current generation of people and young people, we are talking cross-cultural marriages, we are talking cross-border relationships, we are talking all kinds of interesting cross-pollination of societies and humans. And so it's unavoidable. And at some point, we need to challenge our own thinking, our own limited thinking around how we understand identity. And at the bottom of it, what incites fear in us when something doesn't seem like the thing that we know, and it evokes this kind of reaction? Let's go to WhatsApp first, and then we'll come back and we'll go to Roodepoort.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
Bridget, this is an interesting conversation. Your commentator makes reference to the beast Mtawarira. I can make reference to Oscar Warona or DJ Fresh and a whole host of other guys that we've adopted as South Africans. So people adopt people as South African when it suits them. and then disregard others. If you look at countries around the world, I mean, if you look at America, for example, I mean, it's a country full of foreigners. That's basically what America is. And as long as you can sort of be productive as a foreign national in a country, why should we even have this debate in the first place? It's very sad. And I feel very sad for this young lady. And I think people should just leave her alone and just grow up. Thanks.
It is very sad indeed. And I love the examples that Lieto and yourself sort of bring up, because I've been checking social media ahead of this conversation today, and people were naming names that I'd even forgotten in their attempt to drive Lieto's point through, and one at MacPaul M tweeted in response to somebody saying, "Imagine a half Nigerian Springbok captain." And at MacPaul M responded going, "You have had a half Zimbabwean Bok captain by the name of Bob Skinstad. And you've had a half Zambian Bok captain by the name of Kone Krenji. You accept whites and not blacks to be nationals?" And this goes in tandem with a few other challenges that people have had around this topic to say, why is it that the outrage is always reserved for black Africans when we talk around this conversation of who is a citizen and who is not? And the same energy is never extended to any other race, right? And hence those examples. Trevor Noah's name was also thrown in the mix. People saying, but Trevor Noah's dad is of Swiss descent and birth. And his mom is black South African. And yet you wholeheartedly claim Trevor Noah as South African. What makes him different from this young lady? Let's go to Roodepoort. Nenzi, how are you?
Fine, Bridget. I'm just so sad about the hatred that we still show to our brothers and sisters across the continent. And I want to I agree completely, wholeheartedly with everything Lieto said, but I want to contribute to this perspective that, do you know that I think some of us have forgotten that in particular Nigerians contributed so much financially and otherwise to our struggle during apartheid. They selflessly contributed, along with Zambians, along with Mozambicans, along with Zimbabweans. And so the hatred that we have for our African sojourners, let's call them, is just so misplaced. The other thing that I want to say is that, and historians must check me on this, but this is what I know, that warriors with families and communities traveled from Nigeria to South Africa. Some ended up in the middle. And so when you go to Nigeria, you see people looking like us. And so this hatred, as we continue to hate people who come from African countries, we hate ourselves.
Yeah. No, that's the truth.
We hate ourselves.
Nenzi, thank you so much for the call. Let's jump to Mafeking. How are you?
Hey, Kathy, how are you?
It's Bridget. I'm okay, thank you.
I'm sorry,
It's
Bridget.
okay.
Yeah, my apologies.
No, it's okay.
Yes, I'm telling you, your guest there nailed it. I mean, we wouldn't have been here without our neighboring countries in the support to our freedom. So those who are criticizing that girl, they don't belong to the people. I think they must be taken to the zoos. They shouldn't be among the people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mudisa, thank you so much for the call. That was Mudisa in Mafeking. Lieto, here's the other thing. Let's talk about, whilst we examine this question of what does it mean to be a South African, because clearly there's a certain threat that is felt by South Africans. And I like to believe that this is not a representation of the vast majority of South Africans. My English teacher used to say the emptiest vessels make the most noise. So I'd like to believe that this is not the representation of the vast majority of South Africans. However, it is concerning because it is very loud. and it is becoming the representation of what South Africa is. What stokes this? What threatens this national identity of being a South African that riles people up to such a degree?
It's going back to the point of us identifying ourselves in the trauma of our colonizers, right? It's the idea of the Hutus and the Tutsis, right? Say, no, we are taller, more elegant, and the French loved us more than they loved you. And so from there onwards, the war between us is when the French leave, we decide to kill the others, right? Who don't look like us. We don't kill the French. And so it's the same kind of idea that if somehow I get to wipe out what the oppressor liked or didn't like, I will then become somewhat greater than what the oppressor reckons me to be. Whereas we are greater when we are together, because all of us have something to contribute. Because look at how, just let's take 2 steps back, even though it's subjective, but look how beautiful that lady is. And that is the coming together of the genetics of a Nigerian and a South African, right? And you bring out a product much better than what you intended in the beginning, or what you thought you had as special, being separate, right? And that's the idea that we should be galvanizing around. But also, as a final point, I want us to also start to think about another thing, right? We claim people as ours, right? What about those who don't claim us, right? We love, for instance, claiming Elon Musk. Everyone says Elon Musk is a South African. How many times have you heard Elon Musk actually saying, I am a South African? Every time he speaks about South Africa, he says, I was born in South Africa. He identifies as American. His passport, his ID, everything about him is American. And so what about that? We claim somebody who clearly hates us, who clearly does not want to claim us, but we claim his South Africanness anyway. See, that's the other side of the coin, is that when somebody is excellent, even though that person hates us with everything that he has, every time he speaks about South Africa, he speaks about a negative memory he had about a boy beating him up after school. And then after that, he stopped identifying with the South African causes and purposes. Yeah. And so when you think about it, we even claim those who don't want us. But those who do want us, this lady wants us. She wants us to be part of her life. She wants us she wants to show that she's one of us. She can be a representation of us. We reject her. And so those are the things we must also think about as South Africans, and what we're doing to our own psyche by rejecting this young woman.
And it's funny you talk about the converse of that, because at Tired Feminist wrote, I think it's crazy because these are the same people that were upset that Uncle Waffles, the international DJ, didn't publicly identify as a South African, even though she was literally born and raised in a different country, and so were her parents. And this after South Africans assumed that Uncle Waffles was South African when she broke out into the industry, only for her to then correct the narrative when she got nominated for a BET to say, hold on, I'm actually not born South African. I'm not naturalized South African. My ID is not South African. But yeah, I live in South Africa.
And we love that. We love the brilliance of South Africa, isn't it? It's that Springboks are winning the World Cup. It's that we swim better and all of these things. But we hate what we think is something negative, because I even brought up the issue in my class because they heard me talking to Tabi saying about the interview, and my class said, "Sir, you're going to talk about this thing." One of the girls was actually very emotive, and she said, "No, even if she was from Angola or from somewhere else, we would have accepted her. But the fact that she's Nigerian, Nigerians take everything, all of them. That's how they are." And I'm thinking, and I try to reason with it, say, but you can't say all of and how they are, because those are the terms in which we were described as the black people of South Africa. We were denied schooling because the blacks are stupid. We were denied dignity because the blacks steal or the blacks are ungovernable. And so you can't generalize in those ways, because those are the same ways that you had pain inflicted upon you. And so because you've heard negative stories about about Nigerians, it can't be that the identity of Nigeria in your mind is held in such contempt that when you come across Nigerians, you already assume them to be bad. And that is the worst thing, right? Because this young lady is half Nigerian. So what is you're going to cut out some part of her that you assume is bad? Even because if you listen to my lineage, I'm a quarter Zambian. So you're going to cut off my toes to take away the Zambian. It makes no sense. We either accept the whole of a person and their essence and their genuine need and want to be part of us, or we don't. None of us, just like none of us, the example of Beast, the example of Oskido, the example of Connie Ferguson, right? She's from Botswana. We don't cast them out because they are brilliant. But then we want to cast those out that we don't assume or we can victimize, those who seem weaker than the brilliant ones. Yeah. But it shows you that we are stronger together. When we support Connie Ferguson, when we support Beast, that is where the brilliance of Africa shines brightest.
Yeah. Very, very interesting indeed. And it speaks, I guess, to this notion of perhaps we need to consider rejecting the rhetoric. And this is what Lee Rodenberger, the author of this opinion and piece on the IOL, said around, we must reject the divisive rhetoric that undermines our unity and instead celebrate the rich diversity that makes us unique. If we go to WhatsApp, some of your written WhatsApps. Let's see, how are we? Afternoon, Bridget. One thing that I have observed is that the majority of the xenophobic-minded so-called South Africans are not really South Africans themselves. They are foreigners as well. And this coming from Herman. I was saying Herman Mashaba is a good example from Temba in Rustenburg. Bridget, we don't hate our neighbors at all. That which they do unto us is what we hate. Secondly, in their countries, our people lived in refugee camps, yet when they come here, we are human enough to say that they intermingle with us to our detriment. And this is from Mtari in GP. And someone else saying, your guest is not correct. South Africans are the most accommodating. Every person is here. Oh, okay. Every person is here. We hate the strange crimes we now experience: drugs, cults, churches, mass killings, infrastructure destruction. And I guess this last sentiment speaks to the association, which can also be dangerous, right? As you speak about the use of all to the example of your student in class, because now we are brandishing nations and grouping them homogeneously as all of them are this type of person and all of them are that type of person, when that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Right. And by the way, I just want to correct another misconception. South Africans didn't live in refugee camps when they went into exile. They lived in military camps that they erected themselves. Most of the countries that we went to actually even gave us allowances. They took South Africans and gave us monthly allowances to buy food and toiletries and the like. And so the camps that we lived in as South Africans were erected by us because we wanted to do military training away from the civilians of that country. So we must be very clear. But then I think the second thing is this, is that somehow the crimes that are happening in South Africa are somehow strange. They're alien to us. Crime is crime. There's no Nigerian crime, right? Because, by the way, there were more shipments of drugs found from Bulgarian immigrants in the Cape Harbor. In the KZN Harbor, there were drugs with Polish immigrants. But nobody is telling you how the Polish are bad or how Bulgarians are bad. But we know distinctly to point out and say this kind of crime comes from a Nigerian, this one comes from a Zimbabwean, because we love to feel special outside the gaze of the colonizer and how we were sort of plunged into this identity to say these are this kind of bad person, these are that kind of bad person.
Yeah.
And that is such counterproductive thinking, because even now, even among South Africans, you still have those tribalistic things, right? I heard somebody saying the other day that, yeah, all Zulus are violent. And you think about it and you're like, but how have you met all Zulus already? And so that makes no sense in and of itself. And the way in which we judge each other as Africans is so unkind, whether it be internally in South Africa or how we judge others from the continent.
I want to jump to Dumi in Cape Town. How are you, Dumi? You good?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm fabulous, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm one of those women who has children born from Nigerian father and marriage, 100% Nigerian marriage than South African, than families connected together.
Yeah.
Are our children going to be denied their maternal rights because South Africans feel so special? Where love is concerned, who on earth has a right to dictate where one gets married? And I want to say on the air that we are having a petition going to South Africa. We're going to send letters to all the embassies where South African women have children with so-called foreign, because Africans are not foreign in Africa in the first place.
Yeah.
We are going to send petition to the president because we feel like he has to respond to this one, because it shows how South Africans hate other African nations. And how are we getting to Pan-Africanism if we are still doing this as South Africa that calls ourselves a rainbow nation?
And to me, I wonder, I mean, you know, I don't know if you heard me earlier on saying young people are getting more and more into, you know, the intercultural, international relationships like your own marriage. And the world is moving and evolving in this way, where identities are all merged and amalgamated into one. So, and I wonder for you, do you have a worry for your children? You know, when you look at a situation like this unfold, particularly because your children are black, and this kind of outrage always seems to be the preserve of blackness.
The children have already worried even before this happened, and I didn't take it seriously. I always just brush it off. But now that we are seeing it in the media and South Africans are portraying it so badly, you sit back as a parent and ask yourself questions. Am I really welcome in my own home country? Because my mother is South African, my father is South African. They didn't dictate as to where I get married and how I get married. And most of the people in parliament, if you check the bloodline, all of us are not South African.
There's a little bit of this and a little bit of that everywhere. Dumi, thank you so much for sharing your personal perspective. We didn't get around to all the calls, and we certainly didn't get around to all the WhatsApp. We only have that much time for this conversation, but we thank you all for joining us. And by the way, there was no malice or offense on my part, just by making reference to what my high school teacher used to say. It's just something she used to say at times when we were in a class and we were busy sharing opinions, and perhaps our opinions weren't substantiated with fact or reason. And she always used to throw that phrase out. So sometimes when you see our behavior on social media, it makes you ponder, Uguti, but, you know, should this opinion be the loudest at this point? Because it's not anchored by anything of substance. It's only stoked by fear and maybe a tinge of irration. I don't know. But Lieto Ntoba, thank you so much for the time. And Lieto is a social commentator and a lecturer. It's just gone 10:02. It's time for us to get into Kids Corner.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Greatness has a way of overcoming all the obstacles. South Africa is readmitted into the International Olympic Committee. The Afrika Dzonga flag was flown by marathoner Dan Dow at the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games Barcelona 1992. Ilana Meyer rose to the occasion with a silver medallion in the women's 10,000 meters. While tennis doubles pairing of Wayne Ferreira and Pete Norval grabbed another silver.
Second and silver medalist representing South Africa, Wayne Ferreira and Pete Norval.
Team Africa Jibembe. Magical moments of the Olympics. Brought to you by SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024.
For the love of the game.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hi, my name is Derek Wood. My favorite color is purple. No, I don't think that some colors are for a specific gender. I actually have been pressured to like a certain color just because I'm a girl. It made me feel sad because 5-year-old me loved red, but the other kids were saying no, that's for boys, and I had to like the color pink, but I didn't like pink. The superhero Hawkeye wears purple. I think he wears it to stand out and for visual appeal.
Good day. My name and surname is Kyogo Shempembe. I am 10 years old. I have two favorite colors, pink and purple. No, I do not think that some colors are meant for boys or some are meant for girls. Everyone can like a color that they like or prefer. No, I have never been pressured to like or dislike a color because of my gender. I believe we all are free to choose what we like or dislike. We cannot let others choose what is best for us. Only we know what is good for us. I don't think I know of any superhero who wears pink or purple. Thank you.
My name is Maramai. My favorite color is blue. And I think all the colors are for everyone because, for example, girls sometimes wear blue shoes and boys would say that's for boys. You can see boys use pink and purple and other colors like girls. But toys, I understand why there are toys for girls and boys, but colors, I don't understand. It doesn't even make any sense. If a girl uses red, boys should say that that's for boys. That's just ridiculous. I don't like that there's colors for boys and girls. This idea is the worst thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
Hello everyone, my name is Duruetsang Ndlovu and I go to Macaulay House School. My favorite color is pink. Of course it's pink. No, I do not think that some colors are made for boys and some are made for girls. All colors should be for everybody. Lots of people use different colors to express themselves. No, I have never felt pressured to like or dislike a certain color because I'm a girl. I like lots of different colors. A superhero who likes wearing pink is Gambit of Marvel's X-Men. His character wears a pink combat corset. He also has pink playing cards, which he can use as explosives. Another superhero who has everything pink is Barbie. Barbie, although known as a fashion doll, is another Marvel superhero. She has super strength and super speed.
My favorite color is yellow. I think the colors for boys and girls are meant for babies, where a baby girl color is pink and a baby boy color is blue. I am saying that because I see rainbow colors worn by both males and females, depending on the occasions. I also think it is a good idea to let people choose any color they are comfortable with.
My name is Trifele Mwang. My favorite color is the color blue. In my opinion, I don't really feel like there should be different colors that genders like, because colors are colors. What's the problem if a boy likes some colors that girls like, and what's the problem if girls like the colors boys like? There's just no point in doing that. The color is the color. people like what they like. I like what I like, and other people like what they like. I've never really felt pressure to like a certain color because of my gender. I've never really been affected by this because color is color. You don't have to be classified by colors of what gender you are. You like whatever color you like, and I like whatever color I like. I'm not really into superheroes, but what I do like about the football team I support is that they wear the color blue.
Hello, my name is Ashley Kabamba. My favorite color is pink. And I don't think there are colors for girls or boys because a girl might like blue and a boy might like pink. So each and everyone might like different colors, but it doesn't mean there are separate colors for girls or boys.
Hello, my name is Potamachete. My favorite color is yellow. I don't think that there are colors that are for boys and for girls specially. I think all the colors are for boys and girls. I think it is a good idea so that if boys and girls are doing group exercising and they are asked to wear the same color of t-shirts, they will not have to argue about the color of the t-shirts. That way, there won't have to be any arguments about colors between boys and girls.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. I hope you had a great time at school today. Come closer and let's talk about gender stereotypes related to colors. From a young age, many of us were taught that certain colors are meant for specific genders, pink for girls and blue for boys. However, it's important to realize that these associations are just stereotypes and don't have any real basis. Colors don't belong to any gender, and everyone should feel free to like and wear any color they prefer. The link between pink and girls and blue and boys is actually a recent development. In the past, both boys and girls wore white clothes as babies, and pink was considered more suitable for boys in the early 20th century because it was seen as a strong color. On the other hand, blue was associated with girls for being delicate. These associations changed over time due to marketing and social influences. This history shows that color associations are not natural or fixed. They are a result of cultural shifts. Even today, these stereotypes can impact our thoughts and actions. Some children may feel uncomfortable wearing colors that are considered for the opposite gender, which can limit their self-expression and lead to teasing. It's important to understand that liking a specific color doesn't define who you are. Whether you're a boy who likes pink, a girl who likes blue, or any other color preference, it doesn't reflect your personality or abilities. It's also unfair to judge others based on the colors they like. Just like people have different tastes in music, food, and hobbies, they can also have different favorite colors. It's important to honor these differences and avoid making assumptions about someone's character or interests based solely on their color choices. By encouraging everyone to embrace their preferred colors, we foster a welcoming atmosphere where everyone feels valued and accepted. Colors are for everyone, and there should be no limits based on outdated stereotypes. By understanding the history of these stereotypes and choosing to break free from them, we can all enjoy a more expressive world. It doesn't matter whether you love pink, blue, or any other color. You can wear it proudly. Remember, it's not the color that matters, but the confidence and kindness you show to others.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
The top stories at 2 o'clock, South Africa facing new economic challenges and ANC veterans welcome Zuma's expulsion. A very good afternoon. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says South Africa is entering an era of new economic challenges, even as the recent ones have yet to be overcome. He says despite better prospects in recent months, the path to recovery remains beset by risks and vulnerabilities built up during the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at the 104th Annual Ordinary General Meeting in Pretoria, Kganyago outlined a tough road ahead. He says inflation remains stubbornly high, with public debt levels globally at record levels. He says July 22nd was recorded as the hottest day on Earth, indicating climate change challenges.
There is little fiscal or monetary policy space available to deal with the risks that could emerge to financial stability, renewed inflation pressures, or even the growing challenge of climate change. Inflation remains a major policy concern for central banks globally.
ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang says the worst neglect the ANC has ever committed is to allow for the registration of the MK party under the name of its disbanded armed wing. This after the former President Jacob Zuma, who is the leader of the MK party, got expelled from the ANC by the party's disciplinary committee. It found Zuma guilty of contravening the party's constitution. Zuma has 19 days to appeal. Msimang says the ANC Veterans League welcomes the expulsion.
Now the ANC is so negligent as to allow other people to take this organization under the banners of which people like Solomon Mahlangu and other heroes went to the gallows. And we fail to protect this thing, and you're mentioning Chris Hani in the same breath with John Hlophe. How can it be that? That's the worst thing, and there is still a need to find a way of communicating to younger generations now that Umkhonto weSizwe is not this thing.
Speaker in the KZN legislature, Nomthembeko Boyce, says there's been no formal complaints around the costs associated with the opening of the provincial legislature taking place over 2 days. AmaZulu King Misuzulu Gazwelithini is officially opening the legislature in Pietermaritzburg today. This precedes the State of the Province address by Premier Thami Ntuli tomorrow. In recent years, it has become customary for the Zulu King to open the legislature a day before the Premier's State of the Province address. Boyce elaborates.
So when we came in as a legislature in leadership in 2019, we had a discussion on how we're going to proceed. And remember that decisions are taken in terms of the discussions that are put forth and also in terms of those that are coming from parties. It has not been taken as a decision. Even now, when we came in, we started to make the preparations and it has not come in. But I believe that if at some point in time parties agree that it be taken together, we will do that. But for now, parties have not brought it forth.
Boyce says that the total cost of the 2-day opening of the provincial legislature will be released in due course.
Usually we would do the final one when we finalize today to know. But usually, as you would know, that when we do the other one, it's always above 3 million. But for today's one, we know that it is always above it is always below 1.3 million. So we will do the finalization of the costing and everything post-fact.
And the Venezuelan ambassador to South Africa, Carlos Feo, says some countries are trying to interfere in his country's electoral processes because they want its oil resources. The opposition in that country has rejected the election results. This after the Electoral Commission announced that Nicolas Maduro had won Sunday's presidential poll. The US has criticized the commission, accusing it of lacking transparency. Feo says the countries that are criticizing Venezuela's electoral system have a hidden agenda.
We are the country with the biggest reserves of oil in the world. It's an element to consider also. And also because we have a revolution going on that wants to take our resources to the well-being of the people.
The top story at 2 o'clock, Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says South Africa is entering an era of new economic challenges, even as the recent ones have yet to be overcome. The Full Circle continues. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
What is Ushuni, you say? Ushuni has a musical gift and can transform a song. Ushuni can fuse folk music with a popular urban beat or tune. Ushuni can take us on a beautiful musical journey. Ushuni way to Gelo. Join us in unearthing South Africa's next folk music star. 40 talented contestants from around South Africa competing for the ultimate grand prize of 500,000 Rand cash and a recording deal. Angeke basikhone with Ushuni Womhlaba, starting 7 July, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on SABC1.
High emotions and tension will prevail from the early moments of the contest between Spain and South Africa in the men's Pool A. The Europeans want to add the sound of a Spanish guitar in their game plan, but the African stars from Zanzi refuse to drop their heads. This is the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Spain battles it out with South Africa on Wednesday 31 July at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport is the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Hlamba ngobubende, hlamba ngegazi, ndilo. Shume samathamba lelokuthula. Oh, nyabuza, thahla ndaye, ndilo. Oh, ndilo. Damlandelo bawo ndilimbondo hewe ndilimbondo kwaye ndihlabela mambondo when I greet my fathers, both living and departed, I say, hlamba ngegazi. Damlandelo bawo ndilimbondo ewe ndilimbondo kwaye ndihlabela mambondo ndilimbondo ndilimbondo damlandelo bawo ndilimbondo ewe ndilimbondo hlabela mambondo. Nyabuza, thahla, ndayeni, faku, ngqungqushe, siqelekazi, ndamase, hlamba ngobubende, mambondo, kamaku.
the incomparable Zonke coming through with Impondo. Beautiful song right there. We're still working on it. We've been trying to get her in here on a Friday. But we also understand that when we're trying to, particularly with performing artists, when we're trying to get them in here on a Friday for full access, it can be a little bit tricky, especially if they're in the midst of touring or perhaps they're out of town at a performance. But one day the stars will align and she'll be in studio. That is how we kick off the second hour of the show with Zonke. Impondo is the name of that song. We are now focusing on all things health and wellness. Listen, we move around here. We have the conversation and then we move to the next one. So Dr. Becky Khole is joining us now. She is a specialist physician and pulmonologist. It's always a mouthful, and we're talking around pancreatitis, and she's going to expand on us what pancreatitis is, and we're going to look at maybe some of the challenges associated with it, as well as some issues that can arise from it, and of course what happens if one is diagnosed with anything that relates to it. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Becky? You good?
I'm very well. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fabulous. Thank you. Can't complain. Thank you for carving the time for us this afternoon. We appreciate it. Let's get into, what is pancreatitis? I got to almost sound it out and try and get it correct. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, pancreatitis. You got it correct.
Yes. What are we talking about when we're talking about pancreatitis?
Pancreatitis is an inflammation of an organ that you have in your body called a pancreas. It is unfortunately not an organ that we talk about a lot, but it is related to controlling how you digest your food, you digest some of your proteins that you get from the food and things like that. And sometimes you get an inflammation from this organ from various things. The leading cause of pancreatitis is alcohol binging or drinking too much alcohol.
Very, very interesting. Okay.
That's the commonest cause, but there are obviously other causes.
Yes. Before we even get into the causes of it, also help us sort of paint a mental picture. So you say that it is an organ related to how we digest food matters and food stuff. In context of the body, where is it located? How sort of sizable is it? Is it a tiny organ that can cause a lot of problems, or is it a relatively big organ that just really is docile until provoked otherwise?
It is a very important organ, I mentioned. It is located behind your liver.
Okay.
And it is about 12 to 15 centimeters, so it's actually quite tiny compared to the rest of your organs. But it's responsible for producing insulin, which is the main hormone that helps us digest sugar or use sugar. When we eat it and when we break down some of the foodstuffs into sugar, when you eat fat, food, it ultimately gets turned into sugar. When you eat proteins, they ultimately get turned into sugar, and to digest that sugar and control the sugar levels that you have in your body, your pancreas secretes insulin to help with that. So most of the people that have diabetes actually have a problem with the insulin that's released from the pancreas, either because it's absolutely not there or it is not good enough to reduce the sugar to the levels that they're supposed to be.
Okay. All right. I think that helps us understand it even a little bit better. By way of, and when we're talking pancreatitis,
yes,
we are now talking when what happens? When the organ is not functioning, what is happening?
When it's inflamed. So if you bump your leg against the table you get reddening and swelling of that area because of the trauma that you caused to your foot or your leg.
Yeah.
So when they say inflammation, that's generally what they mean. But that could be in response to, obviously, toxins such as alcohol. Some drugs can cause it. Having gallstones can cause it. So because of the trauma that it gets from all those things, it gets inflamed and swollen, and it doesn't function properly. So that's what pancreatitis means, inflammation of the pancreas.
And this inflammation then directly is connected to the causes of the pancreas not working correctly. So, like you said, or rather, let's list what those causes could be.
So, the inflammation, because when things are swollen, they just don't work as good as they would have when they were not swollen. That's literally what makes it function a little bit less. So I did mention that number one on the causes of pancreatitis is alcoholism, so chronic alcohol use or binge drinking. So if you drink a little bit more on the weekend than you would during the week, then you are likely to suffer from pancreatitis at one point or another. Some drugs can cause it, so medications that you probably need to take for some other reason can cause pancreatitis, and some infections that you might get, including viruses, can cause pancreatitis.
I see. Okay, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back on the other side of this. The doctor is in the house. Dr. Becky Khole is joining us, specialist physician and pulmonologist. I swear today she's playing with all of the vowels in my mouth and my tongue. And we're talking all things pancreatitis and other things associated with that region. So if you do have a question for the doctor or something that you want to contribute to this conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. But just by way of caution, of course, as we do every Tuesday when we're talking to medical professionals, the doc can't make a diagnosis for you via the phone. But what she can do is give you some guiding information so that you can then follow up with a proper consultation with the respective doctors or medical practitioners to get a real concise face-to-face consultation of what could be your issue. But for today, she can just arm you with some information that you can use for further research or to probe your questioning with your respective medical practitioner. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on.
Channel more reasons to feel encouraged on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as Councillor Sadia Southgate shares how mental health support helps us see a brighter day. Making sense of food labels gets us eating right. Chef Dumi and Jay make a whipped feta and grilled lamb flatbread. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
High emotions and tension will prevail from the early moments of the contest between Spain and South Africa in the men's Pool A. The Europeans want to add the sound of a Spanish guitar in their game plan, but the African stars from Zanzibar refuse to drop their heads. This is the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Spain battles it out with South Africa on Wednesday, 31 July at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport is the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
The doctor is in the house. Dr. Becky is joining us, and she's a specialist physician and pulmonologist. And we're talking around pancreatitis and, of course, all things associated with it. And Doc has just informed us that part and parcel of the causes are alcoholism or binge drinking, drugs and certain medications, perhaps infections and viral infections. But obviously, I'm sure there's more to this list. This is just the gist. And tell me this, Doc, when we speak of viruses, can then pancreatitis be associated with other sort of viral diagnoses, or can it come about as a consequence of other, what's the term in medicine again? Comorbidities, perhaps viral comorbidities.
So HIV is the top of that list.
Okay.
So patients who have HIV infection that is untreated are at a higher risk of developing pancreatitis.
Mm-hmm.
But something else that's more common that's not necessarily a virus is diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have uncontrolled diabetes, you are also at a higher risk of pancreatitis, particularly if in addition to that you're drinking alcohol and binge drinking. So viruses that also affect your liver, so such as a cytomegalovirus, HSV, human herpes simplex virus, and varicella zoster virus are also associated with the development of pancreatitis. So some of your common viruses can be associated with the development of pancreatitis, but the top of that list, I think that's important to remember, is HIV that's untreated, as well as diabetes that's also untreated can lead to pancreatitis, as well as alcohol.
Okay. Janus and John in Cape Town, I see you guys. I'm going to come to you in a moment. I just want the doc to also help us to maybe distinguish between what would be acute pancreatitis and what would be chronic pancreatitis.
So it's actually not. So acute just means that whatever problem you have is happening right now, and chronic would then mean that it's been happening over the past couple of weeks. So the cutoff is not very clear, but it's just like when you have had it when you've had the abdominal pain and the diarrhea, and you come into the doctor and you say it started about a week ago, so it's usually acute. And if you sort of give us a time period of about 2 weeks, 2 months, then you'll probably have chronic pancreatitis. Obviously, if you are able to sit at home for about a month without consulting a physician with your pancreatitis, it means that you didn't feel it's that bad. So the chronic has a more indolent phase, and the acute, the pain is bad enough for you to send you to the doctor on the same day.
Yeah. And where am I feeling the pain, and what kind of pain am I feeling?
It is described as severe. The patients that I've seen have looked like they were in a considerable amount of pain, and the first line analgesia pain medication, such as paracetamol, Panado, and some anti-inflammatories, haven't worked. So usually you need to go to higher, really more potent pain medication. So I would take it that the patients usually say it's about 10 out of 10.
Sure.
So that's quite severe pain.
Wow. And am I feeling the pain? Because you said that it's behind the liver, and for the life of me, I don't even know where the liver is located. Am I feeling it towards the back, towards the front, on the left, on the right, on the side?
On the right, abdomen, just below your rib cage.
Okay.
But it feels like it's more towards the back, but in that area.
I see. So right abdominal, just below the rib cage, but feeling as though perhaps it's a little bit deeper inside.
Yes.
Okay. So you can't necessarily press a finger and feel the pain, but the pain, you can feel it. You just can't put a hand over it and press and feel that instant ouch.
By the time you come into the hospital, the people usually won't even let you touch them.
Oh, is it?
That's how bad the pain is. They just feel like if you touch them, you're going to make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, generally that's where the pain would be.
And is there something that precurses the pain, perhaps, that maybe some telltale signs that maybe there's inflammation in your pancreatitis?
Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope. The pain just comes in. It is described as the worst pain ever. and when you come in, because sort of your doctor knows the kind of location in that direction, what they should be looking at. So they know to check your liver in that direction, they know to check your bile ducts, and they know to check your pancreas in that sort of location, and with the risk factors that you come in. So if you're honest with your doctor about your drinking habits and your diabetes that's not very well controlled, they're sort of able to say these risk factors lead me more towards this diagnosis quicker.
Yeah. Is this something that's also, or does it have a genetic link as well, or not?
I'm not clear about any genetic link to pancreatitis, since all its causes are usually infective. The HIV, your mumps, your herpes are infective.
Okay.
Your drugs would be something you take.
Yeah.
So not so much, no.
Okay. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on if you have any questions for the doc, or you want clarity by way of some information that you might have heard of. Or maybe, who knows, maybe you are suspecting as well that you've had a pain. Now that we know it's located to the right, just below the rib cage, somewhere towards the back, so deep in your abdominal area region. Maybe you've had some pain and you didn't quite know, and you just want to get some more information and see what steps you take next. We're going to be taking your calls as well as your WhatsApps on the other side of the headline news. 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
Thanks, Bridge, and good afternoon. In your headlines, Mudupi Makhalemele charges against Patricia Morgan Mashele and her husband George Mashele have been dismissed in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says that South Africa is entering an era of new economic challenges, even as the recent ones have yet to be overcome. And the death toll from the devastating landslides in the Indian state of Kerala has risen to more than 50 people. Details of these and other stories coming up 3 o'clock.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, let's get to, is it Janus in Cape Town? How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Bridget. Good afternoon, Doc. I've got a question. Digestion process. My stomach was totally removed. I had a cancer in my stomach, so I lost the stomach. And people sometimes surprised if you can live without stomach. But my question is, who actually, because as I know that stomach could create some acids to digest the food and everything. So what happened now if I've got no stomach?
Yeah. Well, I wonder. I feel like we should be asking you, Janusz, what happens now. I feel like you'll be well placed to tell us where the food goes and what happens with that digestion. But firstly, we're glad that you're okay, by the way.
I lost 20 kilo. I was 82, and I'm 62 now. And whatever I drink, whatever I eat, I'm always 62. But it's strange.
Wow. We hear interesting things every day. But listen, Janusz, you listen out on the radio for the doctor. And by the way, we're so happy that you are A-OK and back to good health. As some folks would say, who needs a stomach anyway? And look at Janusz, living without one. Doc, I've never actually heard of that.
So it does happen, and your large intestines, when they've removed your stomach, get pulled up to sort of form a pouch where your stomach was.
Oh.
The biggest problem then is that when you have acid, you cannot, so you can't control the amount of acid, because the part of the stomach that was secreting something that was making the acid less is gone. You have what they call gastric dumping syndrome, where whatever you eat just goes straight out. You might have a risk of bleeding, but after a while you learn to live with it. You learn to know what and how to eat, and you live a fairly normal, healthy life.
I mean, here's Janusz going strong and healthy. And then when you have your stomach removed, is there any chance of you're developing some kind of pancreatitis at some point?
It's not really widely documented, so
Okay.
it's not a reason why you would have pancreatitis. But remember, there are some people who are removing parts of their stomach for weight loss purposes. So who needs a stomach?
Listen, as you know, John in Cape Town, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to ask the doctor if there is a difference between the cancer of pancreatitis or pancreas and pancreatitis.
So
if there is any difference, because my brother is suffering with the same situation.
Okay.
It's been, they told him recently when we went to Grotesco Hospital, they said that he got cancer, stage 4 cancer of pancreas, which they can't even do chemo because he's getting weak and weak. He can't eat, he can't sleep. Even morphine is not working.
Yeah.
It's not. So
we're sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that diagnosis, John. Hopefully your brother just managed to get some kind of physical comfort through the journey. But let's defer to Dr. Becky. Thank you, John. Dr. Becky, let's defer to you. Any difference between the two?
Firstly, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. So there is a huge difference in that on the other spectrum, the pancreas is just inflamed. So it's just swollen and not functioning properly. Whereas in pancreatic cancer, there's a tumor growing in the pancreas and possibly obstructing and coming in the way of the functioning of the pancreas.
Okay, I see. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 if you have any questions for Dr. Becky. Of course, she's a specialist physician and a pulmonologist. We are talking about pancreatitis, but you can ask her, if you have a question or two that pertains to the work that she does more so on a day-to-day related to the lungs and all that sort of respiratory system. You are more than welcome to do so. Let's go to WhatsApp and see what's on your mind.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hello, SAFM family. It's Edwin here. I just want to find out, my daughter has the pain there just below the rib, and that pain it's a bit sharp. It's going I think at the back. Now we went to the doctor, then the doctor referred to the sauna. So the sauna didn't show anything, just say the symptoms of period pains. My daughter, she's not on period pain. So I don't know what could be the cause of it, even the doctor not knowing what to do.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Doc, it was not much information, but I don't know. Any ideas of maybe where they should be looking?
I suggest they see a specialist. I'm not sure the doctor that saw them, they send them to a sauna. If they don't find anything, usually it means there's nothing that they can find with a sauna. So sometimes just getting a more specific imaging, like a CT scan or something, might actually reveal something. But maybe going back to the doctor, and if they're not getting help, being referred to a specialist might actually shed some light.
Yeah, it would have been, I'm not a doctor, as I'm about to just share my comments based on, conversations for you, sir. I'm forgetting your name now, but I'm not a doctor. But I would also, as Dr. Becky says, maybe go see a specialist. And we've had so many conversations, Dr. Becky, on this show in the last 12 months around the misdiagnosis of so many other fertility issues that are symptomatic by way of period pains, right? And how oftentimes it's just brushed off as severe period pain, and then you become an adult and you realize that there were other things that could have been investigated. And so as Dr. Becky is suggesting a specialist, my mind is going, maybe if you go back and listen to some of our Tuesday podcasts around some feminine medical issues, and then maybe go see a specialist OBGYN, and and as Dr. Becky says, maybe do request a CT scan, maybe do request some other kind of imaging testing, just to see someone who's more feminine inclined in the work that they do.
The other issue is that whenever you go to see a doctor and they send you to an imaging, they go to the simplest, cheapest imaging first. So it's important to go back to them, and when they don't find anything, so that they can go deeper. Because if you came to me and you had a pain and I sent you for an MRI, for instance, and your medical aid told you to pay 12,000 for something I could have found with a sonar that cost 1,000 rand.
Yeah.
You'll find me to be irresponsible. So don't give up. Go back to the same physician, the same doctor that you saw, so that you can work out this problem together. Otherwise, you go to a new doctor and then they try new things as well. And then you end up being dissatisfied because each time you go to a new person, they try something new.
Yeah, very true, very true. Also very important to exhaust the person that you are with. Our lines are open for you. So if you do have other questions for the doc, you are more than welcome to send them through. You can call us or you can WhatsApp us on 061-410-4107. Let's also talk around, just the treatment plan for if you are then diagnosed with pancreatitis. What then becomes the treatment plan respective to both, whether we're talking chronic or acute?
So the interesting thing about pancreatitis is that it will go away. It's just that the pain is so bad that you are not going to sit around at home and wait for it to go away, number one. Number two, you are not going to be able to monitor for complications if you are sitting at home. So if you come into the hospital and we sort of see that you've got pancreatitis, we sort of give you enough fluid because for some reason that little organ can make you lose a whole lot of fluid. So we sort of give you fluid support. We manage the pain because it's excruciating and quite unbearable. And then we look out for other infections that may be affecting your system, or that can be a result of the inflammation of the pancreas, and we treat that. One of the complications is kidney failure. So if you develop that, we manage that. But it's more about managing complications and making you comfortable and sorting out the pain and giving you enough fluid while your pancreas sort of, what is it called? It sort of settles on its own. So there's nothing direct as treatment for pancreatitis except just letting it rest.
Okay. And if you happen to be someone who does drink, for instance, or you're a binge drinker, and you happen now to sort of incite your pancreatitis, is like drinking and stopping to drink recommended? Because I'm asking, and I wondered this, if you continuously drink, if you do have a binge drinking problem, you might be then causing the sort of recurring of your pancreatitis. Is it then just better to not drink at all to avoid all of that?
It is best. What we usually do is if you come in with pancreatitis and we think it's related to alcohol, we let you even see a psychologist right from the first consultation so that they can figure out if there's a way to assist you to stop drinking, because if you go back, you'll be back here.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might not be that lucky.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Because it might get to that point?
It might get to infections that are not controllable. It might get to damaging your pancreas and leading you to have diabetes that is insulin dependent, and you're going to have to take injections every day. You might have kidney disease that may turn chronic, and then you end up on dialysis all the time. So, the best thing to do if you can avoid getting pancreatitis again is to avoid getting pancreatitis again.
All right. Well, listen, I think some of the causes you spoke about seem simple enough by way of them being in our control. Things like specifically if you're a binge drinker, it might be a little bit easier for you to come up with a plan to control that and to curb that. And of course, watching medications as well, see what kinds of medications you are taking. And maybe even on that tip, Doc, as we wrap it up, just being being observant to how medications treat you, right? Because maybe you weren't aware that it is your medication that's causing pancreatitis, but now if you sort of watch, if you take this and you take that, you have that kind of reaction, then you can just swap them out or substitute them maybe.
Yes, you can usually know that this is what I get when I've taken this medication and try to avoid it next time.
Yeah. Dr. Becky, we appreciate the time with you. That was Dr. Becky Khole, who is a specialist physician and pulmonologist. And of course, she is a licensed medical practitioner. You can find her. If you want to be in contact with her office, you can sidebar us and then we'll give you the email and the reception number for her office for a consultation if you'd like to take this offline. Let us have a quick pause and then we'll come back. Ashraf is going to let us know what's coming up on the show today.
Nelson Mandela once said,
"It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it."
SAFM urges you to identify those in need around you and to do what you can to make a difference to them. Tata Mandela went further to say, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
How are you?
I'm very well.
I feel like I need that jacket in my wardrobe, in
You
my
do,
closet.
eh?
I do.
Now we need to take a picture of it.
I
The whole
do.
country's. Can I describe it? It's a denim jacket that matches my denim pants
He's doing
with a
denim
tan
on denim.
shoe.
I love it.
And a tan belt, which is my favorite colours in terms of combination.
Even a little pop
And-
collar
and a
there for
black
some
top.
swag.
Yeah, something like that.
What's coming up today?
Okay, so a couple of things. We'll talk about there's been this killing of a teacher at a school in KZN yesterday. So we'll talk about that again. There's these ongoing incidences and the morality and the security around that. We must talk about it. Venezuela, further updates around that. An update on the Rand water, the end of their long period of maintenance, but there's big issues about the water shortage concerns in the Gauteng province, right? There's more. This UJ, they've got a fascinating virtual court that we'll talk about. And I'm sure you followed the story of this Miss South Africa with
Yes.
Nigerian heritage. We'll chat to Tebe Kalafing about that. He's
Lovely.
particularly furious
Yes.
at how people have come down on her without even knowing the story. So we'll talk about that. And, of course, being the national pulse, what I don't tell you now may well happen in the next hour because things change by the minute. We'll cover it.
Absolutely. In fact, I just saw Tebe's post on Instagram, and Tebe, we all know, is a proud South African and Pan-Africanist. We just had the conversation in the first hour as well, quite insightful and definitely heated and emotive on both sides. But I think there is also, as you allude, there's a degree perhaps of us choosing what we want to see or understand from the situation.
So what's
right?
come out of your two sides to the story?
Well, the same thing that's coming out on social media. So the folks that are really adamant that she is not representing them and she's not South African, and she should be pulled, disqualified,
Because what? Because what?
Because they say she's not South African. They say she's not South African.
No,
even
but
though
what I'm saying, if
she
they're
is.
suggesting that documents are falsified, let's say that,
Yeah.
right? And they're in the country because of that's then lock them up as criminals. That's a different conversation.
Right.
Anything else
is not a conversation. Yeah.
I don't ever want to be part of that conversation where you're othering
Other
humanity
people.
and like, come on,
Yeah.
how pure must you be to be South African?
Right.
No.
And it's as simple as even people drawing comparisons to other South Africans, but it's like we don't want to see it. People are saying, well, Trevor Noah is born of a Swiss dad and a South African mom.
So is he not pure
So
South
is he
African?
not South African?
What's the point? Like, I really... There are people who are like 10 generations South Africans whose forefathers maybe come from, I don't know where,
Right.
Maybe they come from the Congo, then what does that tell you? Like, where do you draw the line?
Exactly. Well, looking forward to the continuation of that coming up on the National Pulse today with Ashraf and, of course, the team. Let's take a quick pause and then we come back and we wrap up from our end.
Nothing beats the feeling of relaxing on your couch after a long, hard day, getting rid of those work clothes and feeling the freedom of being in your PJs. Throwing off that lace front, undoing your hair, that makeup, voila, gone. It's going to be a quiet, relaxed night. Well, not on S3. Bring a whole lot of vroom to your weeknights with Top Gear Season 16. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. and Top Gear specials such as Top Gear from A to Z and Top Gear The Races. Friday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Individual brilliance meets the power of teamwork. Big ups to the South African men's rowing team for their marvelous performance. Gold was delivered in a glittering fashion at the Olympic Games London 2012. South Africa's James Thompson, Matthew Britton, John Smith, and Lawrence Ndlovu made history as the first crew ever to win Olympic gold in rowing from Mzansi, Africa. And the first Olympic gold in the sport for the African continent. Africa, rise! Magical moments of the Olympics. Brought to you by SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we wrap up the conversation, we are chatting to the author of The Quest for a Child, A Story of Hardship, Resilience and Faith. Alucia Mabunda joins me now. How are you doing, Alucia?
I'm good, and you, and good afternoon to all the listeners.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. Listen, this is a book that journals your own personal story. Give us a bit of context around your journey and your pursuit and your quest for a child.
Well, yeah, my journey started off just a few months after getting married, when I then started having difficulty conceiving. And initially, it just started off as something very minor, PCOS at the time. So I just had to watch what I eat and focus a little bit on losing some weight. And over time, that was done, but still, we realized that I was still having difficulties conceiving. And at some point, the gynecologist referred us to a specialist, and we went to a fertility clinic, where we immediately then went on to do artificial insemination.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work, and there were issues with hyperactive thyroid, insulin resistance. It seems like everything just started escalating, you know?
Yeah.
So, and as all this is happening, years and years are going by, and you are meeting people with children, you are in work positions with other people, and you know how it is, especially women, when we gather, we really just start talking about my child this, my child that.
Yes.
You know, this happens all the time, even in meetings. Like now, I'm working at Rosebank College, and what we do when we meet, just as a way of checking in, we'll check how is the family doing.
Yeah.
So I was going through that, that experience to say now, people, when they talk, what must be my comment?
Yeah.
And later on, I was then eventually diagnosed with a bilateral tubal occlusion, meaning both my tubes were blocked. And the only option for me was IVF, which I did do about 2 cycles.
Yeah.
And all of them ended up in miscarriages. And there was a point earlier on, just before the IVF, where I did conceive naturally, but again, it ended up in a loss.
Yeah.
So it was very, very devastating. And also what makes it hard is when you're undergoing IVF and you have to be at work, you have to take medication, constant checkups. It was just a lot.
I appreciate you for sharing the story, because it is a very personal journey, and just as we jump into this conversation, I've been through the very same journey, although different our circumstances, but I completely understand the emotional and the physical toil and the pressure and the pain that comes with it, having suffered recurrent miscarriages and gone through my own cycles of IVF, which also brings us to the conversation around, and you wanted to, share your thoughts around infertility in the workplace and navigating those challenges, because a lot of people don't understand when you just look at the IVF cycle as concentrated as it is, but it is a grueling schedule and that must be adhered to, and it's unflexing and unbending. How did you navigate around that and presuming that also this was a journey that was very personal and private for you. So oftentimes people don't know that you're having to get up and go be, injected with something at 7 o'clock in the morning before you can make that 9 a.m. meeting.
Yeah, that is a challenge. And really, because I like to say that infertility has got this stigma that people don't want to speak about it. Someone will hardly tell you that, look, I'm struggling. But if there's anyone who's listening right now and they have their manager and they are going through this situation, the only way out is to have a sit down with them to say, this is my current situation, and I'm bringing this for your attention to sort of like have some form of flexibility, because those tests are done in the morning. So from time to time, I would arrive an hour late. And I mean, workplaces, as much as we look at managers are people. I am a manager. I'm a campus head here at Rosebank College. And every time any of the staff members would come in to say, I have this that I'm doing, can I just come in 30 minutes later? You do have, I like to call them unsigned contracts or social contracts that really you need to involve your discretion and make a decision. I don't think any reasonable manager cannot be understanding of such circumstances. Yeah. Of course, as an employee, once you've been given that flexibility, you must also be trustworthy. You must also be able to deliver. And if it means later on in the day you cover up for that time, you can do the work, then you do exactly that. But managers must really be open to such cases.
Yeah.
It's the same as any other, if you've got someone working or maybe they're going through chemo or anything and they need some time off.
Yeah. I think what's also perhaps not understood, and maybe it's the resilience of women, or it's the nature of how private these journeys are, because they're sensitive for those of us going through them. What's not also understood is the emotional the emotional toil that this has, or the emotional toll that this has on folks. And how do you support the psychological element of employees? For you, what would you have liked to be in place through your professional journey as you were going through this, that just supported you mentally and psychologically?
So basically, you need a strong support system, even from a family point of view, to actually support you through the journey, because it's not something that you can take on. But it's so unfortunate, and I'm going to make a reference to the book launch that I recently had in Joburg, that there were so many people that we wanted to capture to attend this. The event had a good attendance, but when you've got a certain target to say, I want this particular person, and they end up not coming because people are not opening up. And infertility is this silent pain that it doesn't heal. It doesn't heal, and the only way to heal is to talk about it. I mean, I'm sitting here with 2 children later after my struggle, but I realized when I was crafting this book, the amount of pain that I was in, and I couldn't help but cry. And the other person can ask me, why are you emotional? But I was emotional because I realized that I had been carrying so much pain. And that is part of healing. That is part of coming to accept that you are dealing with this issue. If you join groups, and hence now we've started to have seminars, and we're saying if there's a ladies' event out there and you need someone to speak on this, because you cannot speak on infertility so well if you've not gone through it. You just never know what you will say that will be a trigger.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
And in fact, almost all things are a trigger, as you allude to earlier. You know, birthday party invitations are a trigger. Walking
shower.
past a baby rack at a store is a trigger.
Mother's Day.
Everything is a trigger. Everything is an absolute trigger. And most important, it is a story that I think needs to be shared, and particularly so from the perspective of acknowledging that a lot of people on this journey still have daily responsibilities of pitching up as professionals and in their full capacity as professionals.
Yeah, and that is unfortunate. In the book there, I touch on at some point, I literally collapsed during a meeting at work. And it was because everything was just too much for me. The medications are harsh on your body, the stress levels, the comments that you are getting from people, so many things. They make up, and you've got work targets. You're looking at, where are we? Have I achieved this? Have I submitted my report? And everything just sort of like clouds up and comes to you. And hence, I'm emphasizing that it's very important for the people that you report to know what you're going through, to have a very strong support system. And my voice is that I want infertility to become, you know, the way now we talk about HIV. I want us to speak like that about infertility and have the time to say, I am Alicia, I'm struggling with this, or I struggled, so that more and more people can be open. And I went all out in the quest for a child to explain the deeper things, you know, the collection of sperm, that masturbation part.
Yes.
We explain that so that people don't feel ashamed.
Yeah. Alicia, we will definitely at some point expand on this conversation, but for the purposes of today, we thank you for sharing just the small parts and opening this door of conversation. That was Alicia Mabunda, author of The Quest for a Child, a story of hardship, resilience and faith. And of course, that book is available for you if you're on this journey, or if you know somebody who's on the journey and you think that maybe it would help them to know that they are not alone. That is it from myself and my team. Ashraf Gada is taking over from 3 o'clock. And of course, Madupi is bringing you the news at the top of the hour. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Masinga. Safe travels. The top stories at 3 o'clock. Principal at Pretoria Girls High suspended and charges dismissed against SAP's whistleblower. A very good afternoon. The principal of Pretoria Girls High has been suspended for 3 months. This has just been announced by Gauteng Education MEC Matume Chilwane. This follows the suspension of 12 learners last week. They're implicated in a controversy involving racial comments and complaints about black learners. Meanwhile, several political parties are staging pickets outside the high school in the capital city. The EFF, ANC and the Young Communist League are some of the political parties demonstrating outside the school gate. Nontlanhla Ntshengila reports.
Disciplinary proceedings are scheduled for later today at Pretoria High School for Girls, involving 12 learners accused of racist behavior. The learners were suspended over a week ago, following allegations of participating in a WhatsApp group that contained racial comments and complaints about black students. In anticipation of the disciplinary hearings, security measures have been heightened at the school. The Gauteng MEC for Education, Matume Chilwane, is expected to visit the school ahead of the hearings to address the situation and ensure a fair process. For SABC News, I'm Nontlanhla Ntshengila, Pretoria.
At the same time, the mother of a black learner at Pinelands High in Cape Town, who managed to fight off attempts by a group of colored learners to put him in a cage, says her son is traumatized. The school is also embroiled in allegations of racism. This after a video of black learners allegedly being detained in a cage by fellow colored learners started circulating online. The video of the black learners who are depicted as being sold on auction as slaves has been described as deeply disturbing and hurtful by Western Cape Education. The parent of the learner who broke free, Mel Potgieter, says her son is a hero